In this video, I want to talk about our mechanic shop. I think it's really interesting because I take a look at what it takes to be a mechanic at a rental shop rather than a mechanic at a traditional mechanic shop. And you will see there are things that I look for in a mechanic that you might not expect. First up, let's talk about scale. At the time of this video, Tigit has 124 Honda XR150s, 76 Honda Blades, 14 Honda Winners, 4 CRF 150s, 27 Honda CB500Xs, 5 Yamaha WR155s, and 1 Honda CB350 HNES. This number actually fluctuates a lot as we sell off bikes and buy new bikes around the seasons, but that's it as of today. So how many mechanics do we have to run this fleet? This will actually surprise you. 2.5 mechanics in Saigon. By a half, I mean like a trainee 18-year-old. 1 handyman in Dalat, not a mechanic, but a guy who can change tires, etc. 1 mechanic in Da Nang, and 2 mechanics in Hanoi. But we have a staffing team in Hanoi, super comfortable with motorbikes, tour guides, that kind of person. So why so few mechanics, you might ask? Well, the truth is this, mechanics in Vietnam are not the greatest. I'll explain later in this video. As with all my videos though, I'm not saying what is right and what is wrong. But in the West, we have the ideology of fix it before it's broken. But in Vietnam, it's the ideology of fix it when it's broken. I mean, in some ways, that logic isn't that bad, especially when you consider how cheap parts and labor are here. Just push everything to breaking point, it sort of saves money, right? But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm just trying to justify or find a way to make it make sense. But yeah. Anyway, obviously that mentality doesn't work so well with a rental company sending tourists off on long distance holidays into the mountains. Put simply, a bad to average mechanic does way more damage to the company than simply not having the bad to average mechanic in the first place. I think where clients sometimes get confused, and it baffles me when I hear this about the low quality of rentals in other countries, is that for Tigit to operate at the scale that we operate with, and the review ratings that we pull off, put simply, breakdowns are just not an option. We are not wanting to rent to you a lemon of a bike. You see, to solve a remote breakdown takes a really high-level member of staff to deal with it. Translation in mechanic shops, quick decision making on if the bike can be fixed or is completely broken, and then how to arrange a replacement bike using trucks and things in an acceptable time frame as well. How to keep the customer happy while all this is going on. It is a monumental logistics nightmare dealing with a client who has a broken bike in a remote location. And only the best at Tigit can deal with this. Breakdown situations often go into overtime in terms of working hours as well, and this makes it expensive just from a labor standpoint. After the high-level employee overtime hours, only now can you consider the costs of trucks and fixing the bike. So I say to people who ask about breakdowns, a breakdown is just as inconvenient to us as it is to you. And damn if it ends up on my table. I'm not amused, and I will go digging into the root cause of the mess up, and I don't want breakdown drama on my day-to-day. I can tell you that. So with that out of the way, the mechanics at Tigit are trained and told to replace anything they think they need to, regardless of cost. And I tell you, there is no saying no to the mechanics at Tigit if they think a part is not good enough. So what makes a good mechanic? It isn't actually what you might think. Tuan, our main mechanic in Ho Chi Minh, I've been working with him for over 10 years at this point. One of my first ever employees, and holy shit, he is good. Why? I'll tell you why. Because he knows exactly how far Ho Chi Minh is from Hanoi in terms of wear and tear of consumable parts or even engines. The key here is, will it get across Vietnam? How far is it across Vietnam? Will the chain and sprocket set make it? Will these brake pads make it? Will these tires make it? Will that engine that is making a mildly peculiar noise, but we don't have time to fix it, will it make it? I mean, we try and avoid engine decisions like that, but yeah, for sure, it happened a lot with the CRF 250L fleet back in the day. You see, most mechanics fix a bike and they never see it again. Maybe a few months later, a client might come back for a routine service, but ultimately, the mechanic doesn't really have a gauge of how far bikes are going in relation to wear and tear of the components. Tigit mechanics, on the other hand, see a rotation of bikes at a rapid rate in terms of how many kilometers they are traveling. A bike might do 6,000 kilometers in a month with some riders. The mechanics see wear and tear on their own fleet so fast. They learn what is the distance in relation to wear and tear of all the parts and all the models over days, not months or years, but days. They see so many kilometers. So beyond that, they are really fast at fixing the bike to a condition where it will make it across the country. In particular, if you watch the process in our Ho Chi Minh shop, the mechanics will assign bikes to each rental, down to the duration of the rental. So if the rental is just 4 days, you might get a bike that has brake pads on it that will last for, say, 10 days. This bike wouldn't make it to Hanoi, but it's fine for a 4-day rental. You get the idea. And I tell you, my mechanics rarely get it wrong. They won't give you a bike that is in a condition unfit for your duration. And I will say, we play it super safe on the side of tires and general consumables. The mechanics at Tigit also have a database of all of the servicing. We can't track what clients might do on the road, but we do know the service history within our own shop. And all the shops are combined. So a Ho Chi Minh mechanic can see the work of a Hanoi mechanic, for example. We have regular team meetings among the mechanics, and the way the company is all interconnected makes for quick and easy finger pointing. I can tell you, if a mechanic in Hanoi does a bad job on a bike, the Ho Chi Minh mechanic will be the first to throw a tantrum and complain up the company ladder. Bikes are often serviced in Hanoi, for example, but come down on trucks to Ho Chi Minh. So the Ho Chi Minh mechanics now take responsibility of the bike before it is rented. If they are not happy with the work done in Hanoi, they definitely let their feelings be heard. There is actually another side to the mechanics and a rental business. The first is just reliability, like we've been talking about. Will the bike make it to its destination? The second, though, is performance. Are the tires good? Are the wheel bearings broken? Is the neck bearing broken? Are the handlebars bent? This kind of thing. It doesn't affect reliability, but it does affect the overall experience of the rental. This is a much harder thing to get right. I mean, tires and bearings, etc., that's easy. But bent handlebars and that kind of thing, much, much harder. Rentals are rentals. The saying goes, don't be gentle, it's a rental. And the real truth, whether people are experienced riders or not, nearly every client at Tigit drops the bike at least once. And a huge majority will have at least one minor crash. In the end, we are a crash repair shop. At least that's what it feels like. So with my mechanics, I've attempted to establish what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. 99.9% of the rental clients coming through my shop just don't have the experience to know if the handlebars are mildly bent. Everyone claims to be the world's best rider, but really, yeah, sure. I have percentage ratios with my mechanics. 80% okay, 90% okay, 99% okay. This kind of thing for these sorts of parts. We try to come to an understanding of what a client will feel or not. We must determine if the mild issue will impact their holiday or not. It is actually a very hard to do balancing act. As there is no set line, it's all done on opinion. I personally can feel everything on the bike. I know the problem, my mechanics know that I know, they know. The client, on the other hand, well, they don't know. Anyway, once in a blue moon, an actually experienced rider comes through, and they also know. But usually, these people are pretty relaxed and they understand. Like if I was to rent a bike overseas, I know so much now. I would just want something that A, isn't complete garbage, and B, will get me to my destination. Beyond that, I'm not going to be overly fussy. That is the mindset of an actually experienced rider. The better you get at riding bikes, the less you care. And if I'm honest, I think this is where a lot of rental companies go wrong around the world. The owner or owners is probably not great at riding, and so they rely on the mechanics. At Tigit, it is very hard for a mechanic to get something through me, and I act as a buffer or translation between my mechanics and what I think a normal tourist would pick up on. What is okay and what is not okay. So what are the Tigit mechanics not so good at? They're good at knowing wear and tear. They're good at knowing what a customer would notice or not. They're also outrageously fast. However, they are not so good at electrics or dealing with high performance machines. Take a KTM enduro bike or a BMW adventure bike, or just a general, really hard to diagnose issue. To be fair, they are not actually that bad at it, but it's just not a good use of their time. So what we do is outsource. Let's call it high-level stuff to third-party mechanics, usually in Hanoi. Basically, Hanoi as a city has much higher-end mechanics than in Ho Chi Minh. A lot of our CBs go routinely through a high-end mechanic that we trust in Hanoi. B2B stuff, basically. And he will pinpoint and watch out for things that our in-house mechanics might miss. He also does the big engine checks when we need it on the 500s. Or a bike that we just can't figure out the problem, that kind of thing, we use him for that. So this is why we are not actually understaffed despite having so few mechanics, because we do actually outsource quite a bit. So how to hire mechanics in Vietnam? Well, please someone answer that for me. 3 out of my 5 mechanics set up their own shops at some point in their lives. We've used them as third-party outsourcing shops, but ultimately end up offering salaries they can't refuse. They shut up shop and join the Tigit team. So yeah, we can't find more mechanics easily. And I tell you, I feel very lucky to have the ones that I have. We keep them. The 2 guys in Saigon in particular have been at Tigit for a combined 18 years. And I would hope that they never leave. To wrap this video up, I want to talk a bit about the question on emails, which goes like this. How old are your bikes? And how many kilometers are on your bikes? You see, this question really bothers me. Anyone with real experience knows that this question doesn't mean that much. Years play a part, I suppose, but kilometer count, it really doesn't. I can tell you, if I was renting overseas, I would not be asking about kilometer count. Maybe I'd go for year of manufacturing, depending on the model I wanted to rent. But my history of how I've rented bikes overseas says to me that I don't bother to ask anything like this. The better question is, are your motorbikes maintained with OEM parts or aftermarket parts? This is the true sign of reliability and quality. Just because a bike has 100,000 kilometers on it doesn't mean it is less reliable than a bike that has done 10,000. Not if it's been maintained properly with OEM parts. Ours have, and all you need to do is test drive a brand new CB and compare to one of our old ones. I can almost guarantee if you cover up the kilometer count and perhaps don't look at the aesthetics of the bike, you won't know which is which. And when I use company bikes, I tell you, I don't give a flying crap which bike the mechanics give me. I just drive it. I started Tigit by buying and selling bikes. I promise you very early on, I learned that looking at kilometer counts is completely pointless. It really does mean nothing. And it's such a basic and uninformed way of shopping for a vehicle, especially a rental vehicle. Tigit doesn't buy second-hand bikes anymore. But when I buy bikes for myself, KTM enduro bikes really is all I buy now. But anyway, I look for OEM. If something has a whiff of a modification, then I'm out. I'm not buying it. I also look for what I call coffee shop bikes. These are bikes that look too beautiful for the age. Generally, coffee shop bikes are covering up a major problem by painting or replacing all of the plastics. So I recently bought a KTM 300cc 2-stroke for myself. I had 2 2022 bikes on offer, both at exactly the same price, and both being sold by the same shop. One was 60 hours, squeaky clean, like not a scratch on it. But it had no owner history, so I couldn't look up who put the 60 hours on the bike. The other was 200 hours, and the plastics all smashed up and broken. The owner I looked up on Facebook. He was a real rider, riding the bike hard and crashing it all over the mountains. But he had pictures of OEM KTM parts that he was buying to put in the bike for servicing. So you can guess which bike I took. The smashed up looking one with 200 hours. A 60-hour bike with no scratches? I don't trust that. Maybe this is a Vietnam thing, but there you go. I hope this video has been helpful.